when I was a buyer, a good salesperson would always say something like, I'd just like to remind you, the last book by this author did very well for you. Or they would say, like, this is your repeat business on titles from this publisher, if they like expected me to hesitate. But a lot of it really does come down to like they're enthusiastic, like this is who these people are and this is what they're about, and isn't it cool? Are those in your tool bag?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Like if I feel strongly, if the author, if it's a subject matter you've done well in, and a lot of my buyers I think I forget sometimes just because a lot of the buyers are so good.
Hi, I'm Joe Beal, the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing. I'm also the author of A People's Guide to Publishing, which distills what I've learned from selling millions of books over the past 28 years.
I'm Ellie Blue, the Vice President of Microcosm. We started this podcast to share what we've learned with newer publishers, so you can learn from our mistakes. Or maybe you just want to learn about the publishing industry.
This week, we welcome back special guests, Maureen Karb, head of the Como Sales Group, who is going to walk us through just what it is that she does in the magic of how to sell books. So, how does a book go from, let's say, a publisher's fulfillment facility to be understood, shelved, loved, and sold by a bookseller?
Sure. So typically a publisher will present their new books to me in a sales conference. And so I'm learning about sometimes hundreds of books at a time, which, yes, can seem daunting, but it's, our job. That's what we do. And so I'm given, maybe excerpts of the book, the cover, etc., as much information as possible. I cannot read every book, obviously, that is presented to me. I try to read as much of the fiction as I can. I tend not to, I'll read some nonfiction, but usually what I'm looking for is like, who is the audience? That's typically what people are, booksellers, anybody, like who would be picking this book up off the shelf, and are those people going to be at whatever bookstore I happen to be in? And that's kind of like my ultimate goal if I think that, person. And so for me, that's kind of what I focus on, is like who the reader is. And you can usually like imagine that person. And like the more you know who that person is, usually the better chances of a book selling, of, who's going to pick this up.
So what are the things you need to know about the person, this hypothetical person? Or real person?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just, because so when it's fiction, obviously that's a little bit harder. So that's where the comp titles come in, or like this book is similar to this. And so then if that person liked that book, or, it's something like that, like it doesn't, and it's silly because obviously like none of us we don't know people, you're not going to know every single person that's going to buy a book, but it's all, stereotypes that you're just kind of imagining. But I think that is, so yeah, when it's fiction, you need to know, or if it's nonfiction, it's like, is this person going through something in their life, or like self-help? Do they need this? Do they need that? It's just easier to kind of imagine this person. What is the use of this book for for a person happening? So that just kind of makes it a little easier to, when you're selling the book in. And I'm not doing, I'm selling hundreds of books at a time. So people tend to be reviewing a catalog of books, and they're looking for certain genres or looking for things, or, so it's, not every book is getting the kind of, I wish they did, I wish we could talk about every single book that I'm selling into them, but usually, they're looking at the cover, they're reviewing the contents and making a quick decision. But, I try, based on what the publisher has told me, whether there's a lot of publicity, or maybe this author is like the best person on that subject, or maybe they've written something really interesting, or maybe the editor really felt strongly about the fiction book or something like that, then I'll pick out the ones that I think in particular will do well for that store and kind of shout it out for the bookseller. Yeah.
Well, okay. So when you're evaluating this, you're looking for like essentially like a fit between not really a publisher, but like each book and a store. And so how do you have that conversation? Like, is there sort of like couched language, or are you kind of more direct?
And this is, I mean, I do this over and over again with a lot of these stores with, hundreds of books. And so I will go in, I used to go into a store twice a year, and now I go in 3 times a year and show them a whole like list of books. So it's couched in like this very like specific tradition. And this is with established stores where they're looking at a catalog on Edelweiss of all of the books. And so we do have sort of a routine that I've settled into with most of these booksellers, where I'm going in ahead of time and like picking out books that I think we should talk about. At that point is when I point out why I think they should have this book. This author is really the expert in their field, or, I read it and it was really well done. And then you kind of pick out something, and it tends to be something like that. Or like, this person is local. I think you missed that I tagged that this person is in your area.
Our industry is run by billionaires and conglomerates.
At Microcosm, we wanted the freedom to independently sell our books, easily pay royalties, manage our inventory, and understand our business all in one place.
That's why we've been using our own software since 2001.
Now, we want to share it with you.
Working Lit is the only business success software that is created and owned 100% by publishers for publishers.
Join Working Lit and get the agency you need to help your business grow.
Visit workinglit.com to try it for free.
And I do actually talk about the publishers more often. My niche right now seems to be distributors. So I'm selling hundreds of independent presses from different distributors. I will say, like, this publisher has done books like this before and they've sold really well, or, so that also has been, and I didn't always have to do that, but since I've started doing a lot of distributors and a lot of indie presses, I do it that way.
How much time do you spend preparing for a sales call or sales meeting like this?
I definitely spend like at least half an hour to an hour. If they've done the way that like established stores tend to go, is that I've spent hours and days prepping my catalogs and putting notes and like doing markups and like prioritizing things. That takes like weeks. And then once I'm done, I send that out to, right now it's 200 bookstores like or more, and they're looking at their catalogs. And so they spend a long time going through all those catalogs. And then before we meet, I review what they've ordered. And then I do suggestions of what I think they've missed. And then when we actually meet, we go through the suggestions. And sometimes the suggestions, like sometimes I just suggest something even though they ordered it, just to talk about the marketing or like talk about extra things. And then sometimes it's, I think you missed this title, I think you should have it. And so that actual prep for that actual store would take like half an hour to an hour, because of just going through and seeing what their order looks like and doing that. So yeah, that's the time frame.
Cool. So yeah, I'm trying to it's been a while since I've been in those one-on-one type meetings. Do you find, and it does seem like the pandemic just like completely did a 180 on all of how that like operational workflow goes. I've heard it from a lot of our reps that a lot of their job has become reminding stores that they haven't placed an order yet, rather than just doing the work that used to be your job. And are you seeing a lot of, is that still an issue in 2026?
Yes, for sure. And I think like going back to my other point, it's just consistency. So I'm just always sending out. I have to send them out like 3 different ways. And I'm just reminding stores. So like I ask them like 3 or 4 times, probably. Like I'll send a mass email, and then I go through and I try to send an individual email to remind people to do their orders. And then if they don't get back to me like a month or 2 later, I check in again, and then they'll do the order. And in New England, I don't have this problem, but I know when I sold in the South, a lot of stores like to meet with the rep and then review it afterwards. So then you have to start reminding them to actually submit the order, because then there's the danger of all that work you just did and then they never submit the order.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. So it is. And so that's like, being a rep is the best job. I love my job to death. I work with the best people, but it's also, I think I'm good at what I do because I'm just like good at the really boring crap of just like, I have a list of bookstores, and if I email them, I check it off. And then I just go down the list and just email everybody. And it's so awful. Like it's so boring, but I think it's just, you have to like check in. Cause then, you know, if I miss a store this season and then I email them next season, they feel bad because then maybe they remember vaguely that I emailed them last season. And then that's, you know, so yes, it's a lot of just reminding and checking in, and people are busy and there's too many books. And they have 5 Penguin Random House reps. And that's not even talking about all the other big publishers. So like there's a lot of us. And so it's not their fault that they're not answering me, but it's just, there's a lot of books.
We built this software from scratch to solve our own problems starting in 2001.
It's not only the reason for our survival, but the reason we've been a Publishers Weekly fastest growing publisher 3 years in a row.
Now we want to share it with you.
Join Working Lit and get back the agency to understand your publishing business, market and sell your books, and painlessly pay royalties.
Working Lit, doing the math for publishers.
Visit workinglit.com to give it a try for free. So how do you keep track? Do you just have like spreadsheets or checklists?
Yeah, I have like a checklist. I have an Airtable of all of my accounts, but then, and technically I'm doing 2 jobs right now because as you know, historically I had a rep in the Mid-Atlantic and a rep in New England, and I'm doing both. So since that happened, like my lists got all crazy. And so I have an Excel sheet of like all of the active accounts, and I'm literally just going down the line. They've all gotten my markups. They've all gotten my calendar. But then I individually follow up with them for appointments.
Right. Okay. And so like for us, I think, I guess the good news is Lydia Davis is going to go into paperback before too long. So maybe you'll have an even better season with that.
Great.
But we saw it a lot with like How to Resist Amazon, where you could open up a lot of new accounts to us. And the argument that's been explained to me is that accounts are resistant to opening a new account because just the paperwork, crunch of like having to manage another billable, another set of inventory to manage, and I've experienced that on the other end too. But what I've seen even more than that that's effective is when the right sale, and this has kind of actually been my dream, was that years ago, I had figured it out that like the stores that did best with their books, they put them all on a display or a shelf together, and then they like had like a tight little corner, even if it was like on the floor, that did really well. But since we went independent with our distribution, we found that a lot of stores were willing to do that when we had been told that they would not be willing to do that. And then they would take a chance on like Dr. Faith Harper or things that they had considered like very marginal because they had gotten the right pitch from the salesperson that like, or, I guess to be bigger and blunter, like oftentimes, when that was the number 4 book in Italy, we sold rights to every other European country because that, they wanted to be like, oh, it's already successful. Yes, I need it, versus like when it was new and we pitched it to all those same publishers, they were like, no, this is marginal. Like, does this author even have an audience in Germany? And then it's like all of a sudden they were, but it seems like it kind of worked the same way with the stores. Is that kind of what you're seeing?
Yes. And I think one of my jobs for sure is, stores like to meet with me, not only because I'm pitching them books, but I'm telling them trends. I've been to all the other stores. They can see what's happening. I'm just a link to the outside world. Like they can to see what's working in other stores, to see what publishers are doing, to see what's happening. I'm talking to everybody. And that's one of the benefits of a rep, is that you get to see like, oh, this thing is working well in this store if you want to try it. And yes, I do better if I can say, oh, this book sold here really, really well. Look at these sales. Then it definitely works to sell a book or from a publisher or whatever it is in the other stores. Like comp titles, whatever is the best way to sell. I mean, that's like why Amazon did so well when it was like, oh, if you like this, then do this. That always works the best when selling something.
Right.
Do you have any final words of wisdom about being an excellent salesperson?
No pressure.
I know. Be consistent. Don't be afraid of numbers. I love Excel, and I think you need, I think it's the same of a bookstore, because you have to balance both the combination of, oh, I like this, so I'm going to sell it, and also like what is actually selling. Because oftentimes, half the time I say I don't like something and then I sell more of it because I said I didn't like it. It's amazing. So you just
say you don't like it.
Yeah, you have to balance gut feeling like with numbers and in everything that you do.
Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub,
on Twitter at Microcosm,
on Facebook at Microcosm Publishing,
on Instagram at Microcosm_pub,
and here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.